Okay. I'd like to welcome you all to the Career Passport Lecture Series. My name is Maury Rodriguez, and I am the Vice President in the Career Passport Club, which is part of the Career Passport program. If you have not heard of the Career Passport Club or the program, and you'd like to learn more about it, please see one of our team members who are wearing these name tags. We will be recording today's lecture so that those who had conflicts may watch it at a later time. And during the last 10 minutes of this presentation, there will be time to ask our presenter questions. And we ask that you please wait until one of our team members brings you a microphone so that your comments and questions will be included in the recording. We also want to let you know that we will be having some prize drawings after the question and answer period. So don't leave early if possible so that you can participate and win some prizes. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from Holly Richardson. Holly Richardson is a wife, mother, small business owner, and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She is known affectionately as Holly on the Hill, and she writes an award-winning blog by that same name. Holly graduated as a registered nurse from Brigham Young University and subsequently obtained a degree in midwifery. She has been an adjunct professor in BYU's College of Nursing, and for 2 years was the president of the Midwives College of Utah. Holly is active in the Republican Party and has served in many capacities, including precinct vice chair, precinct chair, legislative district chair, county and state delegate, state central committee member, campaign volunteer, campaign communications director, campaign manager, and as a member of the Utah House of Representatives. In May of 2013, the GOP State Party Chairman Thomas Wright recognized her dedication with the Chairman's Award for Outstanding Service. Holly believes that service improves lives and has been an active volunteer in her community and in her church for many years. She has served on the Pleasant Grove Beautification Commission, volunteered with the county as a master gardener and master food preserver, served on the Governor's Council for People with Disabilities, presided as chair of a professional licensing board, and traveled to Africa multiple times on humanitarian trips. Governor Gary Herbert nominated her, and the state senate confirmed Holly for her current appointment on the state records committee. And recently, Holly was awarded the prestigious Silver Beaver Award by the Boy Scouts of America. She's got a long list of accomplishments. This is the end. Holly has a soft spot for children, and she is an unparalleled advocate for families. She and her husband, Greg, are the proud parents of 24 children, ages 9 to 26. 20 of their children were adopted from 8 different countries. 9 of the 10 children still live at home as teenagers who keep life interesting. Holly is also delighted to be a grandma to 5 adorable grandkids. Please join me in welcoming Holly Richardson.
Okay, so I just wanted to, first of all, thank you all for coming at a lunchtime that may or may not be, more, there's other things you could be doing, I recognize that. So thank you for coming. I wanted to talk to you today about a non-linear career path, and I hope that we have the opportunity to actually be pretty interactive. There's not a ton of us, and I think that there's quite a bit that we can do today together. So I wanted to start off, you already got kind of all the juicy stuff. Let me see, all right, how do I work the clicker? Like that? No. Like that? Yes. Okay, you guys have probably seen this slide before, right? I just changed the words a little bit. So most people, when they start their college career, have an expected career path, right? They think it's going to be fairly straightforward. They're going to graduate, get their degree, they're going to work in the field that they got their degree in, and they're just going to progress along that path. The actual path, my actual path, is a lot more like that bottom slide, where it's really nothing like I expected 30 years ago. So I did get my nursing degree from BYU in 1984. That was a long time ago. And when I got that degree, I went to work in a hospital. I worked in several hospitals, actually. I did orthopedics, I did urology, and then I started down working in a field that I really, really loved, which has to do with newborn babies. So I worked in the newborn nursery. I then learned how to work in labor and delivery. I worked in postpartum. My husband, who I did not marry, look, you get to see the great 80s hair. It's really awesome. I married in 1986, so I had been a graduate for almost 2 years when I got married. And that wasn't part of my plan either. So if you guys all have your life planned out, kudos to you, but I didn't, and it didn't work out the way I had planned. In fact, you already heard how many kids I have, and people ask me, did you plan that? I'm like, of course not. Who plans that? Who plans 24 kids? Not me. So I did get married, and we had one little boy who happens to be here today, and he's not little anymore. So my husband graduated when our son was about a year old, and we moved to Washington State for about 20 months. And he worked up there, but I also continued to work. I was pregnant with my second child. We had our second child. We started doing foster care up in Washington State. And when we moved back to Utah, the foster daughter that we had had with us for a year returned home to her birth mother, and it was really hard on me. It was a good thing for them, but it was hard on me, and I swore that I would adopt if I ever had the opportunity presented to adopt. So that's our second child. See, there you've got the 80s hair again. So we wanted to start reaching out, and I ended up going to Romania in early 1991. So Ceausescu was executed Christmas Day 1989, and in January of 1990, the first news report started coming out that there were kids in orphanages. And I'm sitting in the United States going, I did not know there were still orphanages. There were, and there were 50,000 kids in orphanages in a state the size and population of about Oregon, the state of Oregon. So I don't know if you can really see, in fact, the bottom picture is upside down, which is weird, but that was actually someone's home with the chickens going in and out of the bottom. At the top, you can see that there's a cart being pulled with sticks on it. It was a horse-drawn cart, and that's how they were heating their homes, was with wood. So we got 2 little girls. My husband was home working. I left 3 kids behind. By that time, we'd had our 3rd biological child. And my second one, by the way, was born with severe disabilities. So I came home with 2 little girls, one of whom had Down syndrome. And that kind of started our journey. So it was fairly new, adoption, especially from Romania. It was in the news at the time. And a reporter came and did a story on us. And she said to me, do you have a number in mind? And I'm like, no, not really, but I think I'd like 24. And so that was the headline. And I actually wasn't trying to be prophetic, but in the end, that's what we ended up with, was 24 kids. So after Romania, that's our little family. So we had 2 kids with disabilities, and we had 3 kids with, all of them were ages 4 and under. Okay, so do that math. I had 4 kids in diapers, I had no big helpers, and I was not, oh, I love the hair, isn't that great? It actually was a hard year to have that many little kids. But I also still was looking for opportunities to work outside my home. I did a little bit, and then it just, the mom responsibilities became too much, and I had to stop working in a hospital setting, but that didn't mean that I stopped learning. So over the next couple of years, we adopted again and again. We went to Kazakhstan, we went to Russia. I adopted a little girl from the United States who was born to a meth-addicted mother. So the littlest ones in this picture actually are from Russia, so they're the toddlers. And the little boy on my lap that's kind of on the left as you look at it was our 4th and last biological child. And he was in a wheelchair, and he still is, and he's right there, Joshua. Um, and so he's 20 now, so this picture's almost 20 years old. So we had this thought that we would just do what we could do, and can you add one more, or can you add two more? And we always felt like we had room. We had room for one more. We could just add, we'll just add one more, but if we're going all the way to Russia, we might as well get two, and we'll come home with two. And that's exactly what we did. So our daughter right there, who's sitting on Aaron's lap, she's got very, very short hair over here on the right in the middle. She was born missing fingers and toes. And when she was born in Russia, they considered that a bad baby. And in fact, when we tried to adopt her, one of the things they said is, why are you getting a bad baby? This is a bad baby. Why didn't you get a good baby? And the only thing that's wrong with her is that she's missing some fingers and toes. So you'll see a picture of her later on. She's tall, she's gorgeous, she's a senior in high school, she gets really good grades, she's very popular, and most people don't even notice her hands. Okay, but I also stayed involved in education. So I taught a little bit at BYU, and one of the things that I really loved was natural childbirth. So I taught childbirth classes, and at BYU I would go into nursing classes, and I would teach nursing students how to help a mom in labor, especially one who was not medicated. And that was a lot of fun, and I did it for a lot of years. I also became the president of a small college. I was not yet a midwife, but I did become a president of a small college and helped them through a transition period from the very first president through an accreditation process, and then transitioned to the next president, and now they're on to one past that as well. So in 2000, we had a little girl. She was born to the same birth mother that we had adopted our daughter, who at the time was almost 4, and meth addicted. So when she was born, she actually was in congestive heart failure, and she was given a 5% chance of survival, which, even though I was a nurse, I didn't realize until later that that was really code for your baby's gonna die, but we don't wanna tell you that, so we'll give you a little bit of hope. So they really did not expect her to live. She did. She spent 7 weeks in the newborn intensive care unit, and she is my child now, who plays volleyball and basketball and is in 9th grade and healthy and doing well. All through that time, I'm homeschooling my kids. We ended up with 20 at home at our peak, ages 1 to 17. And I'm still staying involved in my community. And I start to get really interested in becoming a midwife. And so I did. I became a midwife when my oldest was 12. And the hours, as you might imagine, aren't super conducive to regular babysitting hours or daycare hours. So I did end up waiting until my oldest could help with childcare if I had to leave in the middle of the night, or not come home until morning. And I never was super busy as a midwife, mostly because I had a family, and that was my #1 career, is being a mom to all these kids. But I really still love being a midwife, even though I don't really practice. So Harriet Hartigan is a woman who writes and photographs really lovely pregnancy and birth pictures. And this was a saying that she had: birth is as safe as life gets. Well, I became a midwife in 1999. This baby was born in early 2000 that I just showed you. But in the fall of 2000, there was a midwife in Utah who was arrested for practicing medicine without a license. In my opinion, she was perfectly appropriate in what she did with her midwifery care. It was the law that was wrong, not her. So I decided I was going to change the law. And up to that point, I had really not done much with politics except for vote. So I would be what people would consider your average voter. I did not research the issues a lot. I did not research the candidates a lot. I would show up on voting day because I felt like it was my duty, and I would go through the list and I would say, have I seen their signs? Is there a woman on this list? I might vote for a woman, right? And honestly, that's not a great way to vote. Okay, I did vote, but I did not vote in any kind of informed manner. So I did not know the process to change a law. And this is what we were told: you can't do that. You can't do that. Who do you think you are? There were 3 of us who said, we're going to go forward and we're going to do this. And we were told, you're going up against one of the most powerful lobbies in the state. They're very well funded. This is all true, right? The Utah Medical Association. and you guys do not know what you're doing. And they were right. We didn't know what we were doing, but we learned. It took us 4 years, 5 legislative sessions. This is a Helen Keller quote, right? That one of the ones that kept us going. Power is equal to our tasks, right? So we learned to read legislative language. We learned what other states were doing. We learned how to lobby. We learned how to tailor our message for the person that we were talking to. We learned that anger doesn't sell, especially when you're trying to lobby an issue. So we had some of our really early appearances up on Utah's Capitol Hill. We had some of our supporters who would get kind of rambunctious and start yelling at doctors who were in the room to testify. And we started to have people come and say, "You've got to keep your people calmed down." I'm like, "I don't know how to keep my people calmed down. They're not even kind of my people." And so we learned that too. So I learned how to do grassroots organizing. And I learned how to get people to understand that when you go to Capitol Hill, there's a uniform you're supposed to wear. And up to that point, my mom uniform was scrubs, sometimes sweats, right? But it was scrubs and sweats, and my hair in a ponytail and no makeup, because it was like all day, every day, I'm being mom. And then 6 weeks out of the year, during our legislative session, I would put on the Capitol Hill uniform, and I would go to the Hill, and I'd have nylons, and I'd have makeup, and it felt really artificial for a while. Now it's normal. I dress like this all the time. But then it was something new, and I had to convince the people who were coming up to testify and to show up with their babies that they needed to wear the uniform. Okay, so as we kept going, the rest of our life kept going. And we ended up getting 2 boys from Ethiopia in 2004. Actually, now it's hard to see which ones are in there. And then we went back in 2005 and we got 4 more, because we just thought those boys from Ethiopia were so great that we should get some more from that country, so we did. That's my youngest now. She's 10 years old, but that's when she was a baby, and she's a little dolly. So in 2005, actually I lied to you. Let me go back. So this group of kids we got in 2004. So we're mid-cycle, trying to get this bill passed. And we started in early 2001. It did not pass until 2005. So in 2004, my husband and I and 2 of our 2 older boys came with us, plus the oldest Ethiopian child we had already adopted. And we went to Ethiopia for 5.5 weeks. So we're still doing this political stuff, but our family is continuing on. And we went to Ethiopia. We adopted 4 kids. We came home. The oldest was 12 when we adopted him, and the baby was just a newborn. She was 3 months old, 7 pounds, that one. And then we just continued on as we progressed. So later that summer, we had another child that came to stay with us for about 1.5 years, kind of as an informal foster daughter. And she made child number 19. And then that's child number 20. And she came from Guatemala, but she was adopted by another family first. And they felt unable to continue being her parents. And so they had put a notice out on social media at that point. I think it was a group. And saying, "Hey, is there anybody who's experienced handling kids who have a really difficult time transitioning?" And at this point, we have this ginormous family. I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I can help you with that." Well, it wasn't just helping. It was they were done, and they were looking for another family. And so from the first time I contacted them to the day she was in our home was 9 days. And it was the middle of the legislative session where our bill did pass. So in the middle of all that, we're adding this new 4-year-old who doesn't speak English because she's only been home from Guatemala for 2.5 months. She's almost 14 now, and straight A student. She gets 108% in math because she always does the extra credit. So this is what I'm saying to you, is you can live in the and, right? It doesn't have to be either or. Your life doesn't have to stop because you're doing one thing. And I'll say it especially to the women in the room, there's great stuff you do at home. There's great things in being a mom. That's really awesome. But it's not the only thing that you can do. And so this picture is, I think that was our court date. And we just swooped her in. We're like, welcome to the family. Mom's going to be up at the Capitol, but I only have 3 more weeks, and then I'll see you again. And little Rachel became part of our family. So this is, so our bill passed in 2005. In 2006, nothing happened. In 2007, a bill was run to try and really gut the law that we had passed. I didn't think that was cool. And in 2008, they tried it again. And so this is, if you can see, I'm the one in the pink. Next to me is Rebecca Lockhart. She is also trained as a nurse, by the way. And that's not her career path either. She is going to be leaving as Speaker of the House of Representatives for the state of Utah come December 31st is her last day. And we got down to, sat down together and we worked out a compromise with the Medical Association and the people who were running this bill, trying to gut our law, and we got it passed. But because of that, I said, okay, I don't want anybody to dink around with my law. This feels like my baby, right? Like nobody can touch this thing. And so I started going to Capitol Hill in 2009 with no bill to follow, with nothing to lobby for, and I started to blog because I was bored, right? And I needed something to do to keep me awake while I was up there. Some of those meetings are really, really boring. So I started blogging, and Holly on the Hill was born. And this is not the first iteration of my blog. This is the most current one. It's the most current logo. It's the most current colors. In fact, the logo is going to be changing soon. But it's similar. But again, that's another thing I think that you can remember. You don't have to have it perfect for you guys to get started in whatever it is that you love. Again, I'm going to especially say this to the women. We sometimes as women have this idea that we have to have 100% competency before we start something, that we have to have all of our ducks in a row, that we have to have the perfect logo, the perfect headshot, the perfect tagline, all of that. Yes, see, you're smiling. I know it's true because I do it too. But guys don't do that. Okay, guys don't do that. You can learn to do it on the fly just like men. Okay, and I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm saying let's embrace what we want to do and get started, because once we get started, we get better. So I started blogging in 2009. I'm still blogging. I just did a post yesterday. That post happened to be picked up and shared by Senator Mike Lee. It's had over 1,000 likes on Facebook because because it's those people who are reading my blog. And I mentioned right before we started this that I'm actually going to school at UVU. So I just wrote a paper this last weekend, and the paper I wrote was on the influence of political bloggers. Why? Because I am one, right? And I wanted to read about the research on political blogging, and one of the things that is interesting and that I have found is we don't have the readership of like a really high-profile mommy blog. They can sometimes get tens of thousands. Some of my friends get 1 million hits a month. Okay, I've hit 1 million over my career, but it's not 1 million in a month. And but the people who do read my blog are people like sitting senators, congressmen, their staff, and the media. So I get a lot of media people, journalists who write for traditional media who do read my blog. Anyway, so this is probably, I don't know, iteration number 5 or something like that since I started blogging. Some of my pictures were really, really ugly. Some of my pictures, some of my writing was really, really boring. When I started writing, I didn't know what my voice was. I started doing kind of like, well, maybe I'll just write like I were a journalist and I don't have any training, but I'll try to be really neutral. And there was none of Holly and Holly on the Hill. And that's okay, that's how I started, right? But people didn't really interact a whole lot. And I knew that consistency was really important. So I made a real effort to be super, super consistent for the first year. And it really started to gain some traction. And then I started adding some of my own personality in it. Now sometimes I have to keep some of it out, right? There's a little bit of snark in me that sometimes wants to come out that I have to try and keep it tame a little bit. But I write, and I have done things that other people are not willing to do. I am willing, for example, I was willing to call out John Swallow as the Attorney General and call for his resignation before anybody else in the Republican Party was willing to do it. And one of the reasons for that is because right is right and wrong is wrong, in my opinion, right? And so it was, for me, the ability to step forward and say, look, there's mistakes that have been made, there's bad judgment, and this was way before we knew how bad it was, but I was one of the first people willing to stand up and say, this man needs to resign. And because I was, other people were willing to do that, and it started to snowball. But I did a blog on a timeline for Mr. Swallow in June of the year that he was under investigation, that was used by the Tribune and the Deseret News and people on Utah's Capitol Hill to say, here's the timeline all laid out. And now people have done their own timelines, and it's more in depth, but I was able to do that. Okay, so again, life goes on, and in January, early January of 2011, the 2010 elections have happened. Early January, I get a phone call, and a friend of mine is on the other end of the line, and he goes, are you sitting down because this affects you? Listen carefully. And he said, Craig Frank does not live in his district. And Craig Frank was my representative. And it took me that long to say, I'm running for that seat. That long. I didn't talk to my husband. I didn't talk to my kids. I didn't talk to anybody. I said, I am running for that seat. And then it was a roller coaster for 3 weeks trying to decide, because he sued the state, was he going to be seated, all of this drama. And in the end, there was a special election, and I was elected with 62% of the vote for the delegates in my area. And I was sworn in on Utah's Capitol Hill as a representative. So I was sworn in, and 10 minutes later, I was voting for the first time. It was weird. Okay, it was a little weird. This picture was the day I was sworn in, and you can see my baby in the front. So this baby we adopted, she was 9 days old, and she was born in Utah. She was missing most of her brain, and when her mother gave birth to her, she had been planning on placing her for adoption. But when she was born severely disabled, the family that was originally thinking of adopting her said, this is more than our family can handle. And we had, at that point, we had already lost 3 of our kids. And so we were willing to say, look, we know it's hard, but we know that we can survive, and every baby deserves love, and so we adopted this baby. Very, very disabled. She was blind, seizures every day, and she was the love of our life. This was Monday, and on Thursday morning she died. So the week that I was sworn in was really tumultuous. In fact, that whole session was really tumultuous, and it was hard on our family. It was hard on me. I couldn't really grieve the loss of my baby because I was there to be a representative, and I only had 5 weeks left in the session, and I knew that I had to be able to pay attention to what was going on, and so I kept it kind of shut off until the weekends. But I knew if I started crying, I was not going to be able to stop on the floor of the house. And so we had to go through the entire session having just lost our baby, buried our baby, and all of that stuff that goes on. And the session was a really heated session. I got at one point over 1,000 emails a day, most of them calling me names. Okay, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you should be deported, you have no right to call yourself an American, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. So that was, people sometimes ask me, what was the thing that was the most surprising to you? That was it, the hate mail. I did not know people were that mean, but they are. I think being a public figure says, hey, just beat up on me, it's okay, right? So that's what I tell everybody. If you're gonna run for public office, be prepared to be beat up, because you will be. So I got involved in political campaigns. I've done pretty much everything. I've licked envelopes. I've run campaigns, and I've done everything in between, and I've, like I said, been a candidate myself. This is my family last year, so 1 year ago. We've had 2 additional grandbabies since then, but you can tell my kids are growing up, they're getting big. And in May of this year, I got a job as the Communications and Marketing Director for the Governor's Office of Energy Development, and I started back to school at UVU. So my nursing degree from 30 years ago was an associate degree, and I'm now working on getting a bachelor's degree, and I turned 50 in 2.5 weeks. So there's time, right? You have some time. But But here's the thing really that I want to point out to you. First of all, this is one of my very favorite quotes. That which we persist in doing becomes easier, not that the nature of the thing itself has changed actually, but that our ability to do it has increased. But here's the bottom line. You do not have to know what you're going to be doing in 20 years to be able to be productive today. Okay? Who can tell me how many times now people are changing careers over the span of their working years? I don't mean jobs, I mean careers.
I think it's like 7 over a lifetime.
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? The days of I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna work for the same company for 30 years and get the gold watch on retirement, those days are over. We are changing careers 4 to 7 times over the lifetime of our working existence. So I look at I still have a bunch of kids at home, but they're getting older. I've got 3 high school seniors, and I have all the way down to this 10-year-old and now some grandbabies, but we're looking at that going, okay, what am I, Holly, going to be doing in 20 years? And my answer to you is, I have no idea. It probably is not going to be the same as what I'm doing today, right? But I love communications. I love political stuff. I love, and have loved being a midwife. But you don't have to have all the answers right now. I have an 18-year-old high school senior who was crying the other day going, oh my gosh, I don't know what major to pick. I'm like, just start with something that sounds good. Start with something that you love. And maybe you will know and maybe you won't. I started in pre-med. It took me 1 math class to go, I'm not gonna do that, okay? And then thinking about the family time and the family demands. But I ended up being a nurse and I ended up being able to deliver babies, and that's been great. Okay, so I really encourage you to really embrace what life has to offer you. There's so much fun stuff out there. I've been a lifelong learner. I love to read. I have books up and down my house, all over my house. But now I've discovered the joy of Audible books. I didn't think I would, because I'm one who likes to turn the pages. But guess what? Now that I commute almost an hour a day, one way, I have an opportunity to listen to books. Last year I went through 100 books. This year I'm on track to do about 75, somewhere in that neighborhood. And you can keep learning and you can stay involved in all these really great fields. So I do social media consulting, and I'm old for social media. But you know what? I love it. I love it, and I use it as a tool. I don't play. I don't do any Facebook games. I don't play Farmville. I never have. And we don't have TV at our home, so that's one other way that I get extra time. But I do social media consulting. I have Twitter followers that are pushing 6,000. I have over 6,000 Facebook fans. And I'm on Pinterest and LinkedIn and Instagram, and I have to have my teenagers say, you know, what's Snapchat? Okay, I'm not into Snapchat yet, but it's out there, right? My teenagers use it, and they don't use Twitter. So go figure, right? So I would, again, encourage you to just move forward with a direction, take it, embrace it, and if you change it later on, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Now, do any of you have any questions? Nobody has questions? You want me to song and dance? I can do this part.
So it sounds like you've had a lot of challenges in your life, especially at critical times. What have you done to keep your perspective at those times and keep the vision going forward?
That's a great question, and part of it is a determination to be resilient, right? And there's a trite saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but there's a lot of truth to that. So it was, I think, a decision, especially with having kids with disabilities and then having kids who died, a decision that I was going to make it through it. And it's not that it gets easier every time. It's because I made it through once, I know I can make it through again. And I had the opportunity to help do midwifing in some sense for people who are grieving, who've lost kids. I've done it in the last month. My husband's brother and his wife lost their 19-year-old daughter to suicide, and we were able to sit with the family and talk with them. This is what you can expect from the funeral process. This is what you can expect from grieving. Basically, it sucks, right? But but you do get through it. So part of it was a determination that I was going to make it through it. And then once I did, it's to say every time a hard time comes again, I'm going to get through this too. Right.
With all the demands in politics and with your job and everything that you balanced, how are you able to balance family time and work time and politics time? How's that possible?
It's not. So balance is a myth. Balance is a myth, because if you're thinking that everything has to be totally equal all the time, it's never going to happen. But what you do is that you make time for the things that are important as they're important. So for example, today at 4:30, my daughter's playing her first basketball game. I will be there. Tonight at 5:30, I have a class down here, and I'll be here for that as well. So it's being able to stack. It's being able to plan ahead. Women are good at multitasking, and I know there's studies that say multitasking is not possible and it interrupts your train of thought, but I'm here to tell you, if you're a mother, you will multitask. If you're a father and you're doing primary care for your child, you will multitask because you have to, right? You can't sit down and say, okay, I need a 4-hour chunk to write this paper, and then the baby cries, right? Or the job demands, or whatever it is. But I'll be honest, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it is hard. And people say, how can you possibly give individual attention to that many kids? And I'll just tell you that it is different. It's different for every family. My kids don't get the same number of minutes that an only child would get from 2 parents, most likely. But they do from me. But they do get it from siblings, and they do get it from other ways that we do it. So we make sure that we have time with, on their birthdays, and Christmas things are unique and special to them. It's not a lump sum thing. But that's a really great question. And here's one of my responses also when people say, you can't possibly love that many people. First of all, yes, I can. Second of all, what's the alternative for those kids? So most of my kids came from orphanages. There's no one in this world that can convince me that my home is worse than an orphanage, right? So you're right, we may not be perfect, but we're functional and they're happy, and my kids are growing up to be functional adults. And are they worse off because I can't buy them a car when they turn 16? And my kids have friends who have cars when they turn 16. Mine don't, right? Mine don't get a free ride at college because mom and dad are paying. They can work, they can earn scholarships, hopefully not take out very many loans, but that's an option as well. So those types of things. That's a great question. Anybody else?
That many children, there's the 2 of you, financially, is that a real big problem? Do you guys even focus on it, or is it just something that when it comes up, we deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of both. So financially, there's the expense to adopt. Okay, it is expensive to adopt. It was expensive when we started adopting more than 20 years ago. It's still expensive to adopt. In fact, it's probably more expensive now than it was. But we have always looked at it like, if we felt like we were supposed to do that, we would move forward and the money would come for the adoption. Now, it's been harder actually raising them, and they're more expensive now as teenagers than they were when they were little in diapers and formula, and I thought that was expensive. So we had kids in diapers for 23 years, nonstop. I never had a break of at least one child in diapers for 23 years. I tried cloth one time. That lasted about 6 weeks. Just too many. So the other thing that we do is, that is one of the reasons I'm working, is because it has been so tight for so long, and now as the kids get older. So we drive beater cars. We get them for $1,000. They have 150 to 200,000 miles on them. We drive them into the ground. We get another $1,000 car. So we have no debt for cars. The kids learn how to take public transportation. They don't always love it, but they do learn to do that. One of our major expenses is cell phones. I pay for 19 cell phones. That's a lot. That's a lot. But it's one of the things that we feel like helps me stay connected to the kids, and they know they better answer if I call. And sometimes I have to call several times, and it's like, okay, you're going to lose your phone, right? Because I'm paying for that, and it's my way to get a hold of you. It's not just for you to text your friends. But the other thing is, we've had to be careful in how we spend our money. So you can imagine we don't go to the full price movies very often. It's cheaper for me to buy a $20 or $22 DVD than it is to take my entire family to see a movie. We just went to see the Hunger Games, the new Hunger Games movie that just came out. We went on matinee prices. I did buy popcorn and soda, and it was $125 to take the family to see the movie. So it's much cheaper. That happens only once or twice a year, right? The rest of the time, we buy the movie when it comes out, or we go to the dollar theater. Same with eating out. We don't eat out as a family. We take the kids out for their birthdays, and they get to pick any restaurant they want. Sometimes they pick really interesting things. You know, it's like you can go anywhere you want. I want to go to Chuckarama. Are you sure? Yeah, okay, all right, so we go to Chuckarama. I've been to McDonald's before. I've fixed birthday meals that were spaghetti and mashed potatoes. I'm like, okay, right? But that's what they wanted, so that's what I made. So we do those kind of things. I don't go and buy Hamburger Helper. We will make hamburgers, so we'll use 2 pounds for an entire meal for the entire family, right? You can tell we're not huge meat eaters because imagine how much it would take, right? When we do hamburgers on the grill in the summer, for example, we'll go through 40 hamburger patties. That's a lot. So we learn to stretch that way. My kids all know how to cook. So my son, Aaron, my oldest, he knows how to make bread and has since he was a teenager. My boys know how to do that. The women that they date are like, whoa, this is really great. I'm dating this guy who knows how to make bread, right? So that's partly how. But we're always conscious of the money. It's expensive. We live in a big house. We have expensive utilities, right? And we just keep plugging along. And every month it works out. No. Yeah, and and it's always kind of been that way. It's always kind of been that way. So it's like, okay, we don't have kids in lots of sports. We have kids who really want to do sports, but we don't put them in it just for the heck of it. And so when sports fees come due, we pay the sports fees, right? And then the next month we go and buy the basketball shoes, maybe. I mean, it's just that it always works out, but it always takes juggling, and it does take thought. What else?
So what do you think is one or some of your strengths that have helped you to do all of these things?
One, actually, I think, I have a friend who tells me this, and I'm not always sure she means it as a compliment. It's that I don't see boundaries, right? So when people say to me, you can't do that, I take that as a dare, usually. So it's like, well, yes, I can, right? People say, you can't love that many kids. Well, of course I can, right? And I know all their names, and I know all their birthdays, right? So they're my kids. It's like telling a grandma, you can't memorize all your grandkids' names. Of course you can, right? They live in my house. So that's one of them, is I don't see boundaries. If I really put my mind to it, I think there's a lot that I could do. I know I'm realistic. I'm not going to ever be in the Olympics. But if I ever really prioritized mountain climbing, I could figure out a way to do that, right? I could figure out a way. So I think another one is that I don't need a lot of sleep. I am very lucky that way. I think that's something that I got because I prayed for it so desperately for so many years. So 5 hours of sleep a night is enough for me most nights. And that's a blessing, I realize that. And another one is I love to work. I love it. I am really easily bored. I don't like to be bored. I do enjoy working. My kids don't always love that I love to work because I make them help me. But that's another one as well. Thanks for the question. Anything else? Thank you guys so much for coming today. It's been really fun to talk to you.